So you're talking tomorrow? Yeah.
So we can only raise
She left my yeah, you might know my money.
What's this name?
Two ladders over the one a month, one I
Well, they have to grow up. Because, you know, Ron, not only did I forget
everything is said
I don't know. She was still, she's got to go to the big because I said,
I look forward to it.
what's in there? I went to see, they upgraded to 16 years. I went 4 or 5 years and it was still a 50-inch wheel.
Still there.
Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll stand for a brief moment of silence for the Boyce family. We lost a fellow worker today in the community, Gary Boyce Jr. Thank you. Welcome to Town Montgomery Board Meeting, November 7th, 2019, 7 p.m., Town Hall, 110 Bracken Road, Montgomery, New York. I'm the President Supervisor Rod Winchell. Roll call introduction.
Steve Moss, Town Board.
Dan Dempsey, Town Board.
Sarah Stickles, Town Clerk.
Thank you.
Will Frank, Town Attorney.
Sherry Miller, Town Board.
Mark Hoyt, Town Board.
Todd Page, Highway Superintendent.
Sean Mears, Deputy Highway Superintendent.
Robert Healy, Police Department.
Cheryl Green, Director of Finance.
Open with a public hearing for special districts. All right. Okay. As you were. Public hearing, amending zoning to add requirements as built plans. You wanna hold it for a minute?
Public hearing's open.
It's still open.
It's open.
Local law amending section 140 of the town zoning code and to add section 140-55, a provision setting forth the requirements for construction bonding inspection of as-built plans.
These are the revisions that were made following the last public hearing, based on some comments received from planning board, and I believe one or two members of the public. This was circulated to the board, and the board has any questions on the additions, and it's time to hear from the public again after that.
Starting from the right to the back, anybody have any comments on that? Come on to the microphone, name and address. Come on, sir.
Okay, John Brown called him. I commented last time, and I think you got my comment letter, and I'm just giving you some feedback and follow up on that. First, I'd like to commend the town for at least putting a red line version out that certainly made it easier for me to read, and I assume maybe even the board members to know what the changes are. So I think that's a great practice to use for all reviewing agencies. In looking at my comments, I do have a couple follow-ups that I think I'd like to bring forward again. In this law, improvements are not identified, and I don't have the overall zoning code book to know if they're identified in that anywheres or not, but it's a global term for improvements that are going to be reviewed in terms of are they correct for the plans? A second comment is I brought up in section C1 the type of activities that would be reviewed. And I'm concerned that that would be perceived as an exclusive list of only the things that are going to be looked at. And what I find missing in there are they going to be inspecting for the stormwater pollution plans, the overall SWIP plans for the site? That is not listed as one of the items. Second thing, which is of major impact to our community, is landscaping and visuals. And there doesn't appear to be any inspection for landscaping or visuals, whether they are done according to the approved plans that the planning board goes through. Yeah, so those are at least two items, but I don't know, your attorney can advise you on this, whether that list is perceived as an exclusive list, or it could be a much wider set of things that are the overall plan set that needs to be addressed of, has it been built according to the approved plans? The last item I would like to, well, one last item I mentioned in my original letter is there doesn't appear to be any penalties in here if in fact these are not done according to plans. Is it solely just withholding the CO, or is it taking money from the funds? What is the penalty if they don't build it according to the plans? So that's just a point that I'd like to make, is it's not clear to me. An overall concern which I want to bring forward, and this law may not be the right place for it, but a practice that I've seen in a number of projects coming forward are project sponsors making major changes after a public hearing is closed. So a public hearing is closed on the plan set, and then afterwards they come in with fairly drastic changes. In one case, completely changing the view of a building, changing the landscaping where it is, changing a berm. And it's tough because the public goes through and says, this is what we're seeing as we're coming here to public hearings. And then unless you attend these other meetings, you don't know that these changes have all occurred. And you'll be really shocked when you see what goes up and may be different than what you saw in the public hearing. So it's just a general comment I want to make, that that's a practice that I don't think is good. I think the public should see at least something close to final, so when they see something built, they know that it matches what they saw in the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have the front row we missed? Well, okay. Back. Okay, this side, anybody? Public comment? Okay.
I'm sorry, I do have a comment.
Come on up.
I'm not super prepared. I didn't think I would make it, but nobody showed up for Taekwondo, so
Wow.
I canceled class.
Just name and address. Name and address.
Regular clothes today. I wanted to speak about the secret document.
Your name now?
I'm sorry?
Your name and address.
Karina Tipton, 225 Union Street, Welcome Right.
Thank you.
I wanted to speak briefly about the secret as adopted by the planning board, which I understand the town board is evaluating for sailfish.
This is a different public hearing.
On an amendment to the code. The public hearing's closed on sailfish
Oh, okay.
camp.
What is this public hearing for? I'm sorry, because I kind of late.
This is for amending the zoning code to add requirements for as-built plans and inspections.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss I saw it on the agenda online.
It's not, it's on the agenda, but not on a public hearing, ma'am. The
Okay.
public hearing is
All right.
closed.
Okay, so I do have something to say about that also. I am a practicing engineer in the state of New York, and I work primarily in New Jersey. And on all of the construction sites that we do have, we have substantial inspection requirements for all of the projects that are being developed. And I just want to say that I think it's really high time that this type of a code has been adopted. I think we've heard adequate comments from other people, other inspectors about the deficiencies in the town. And one of the reasons in particular that this inspection is important to me is because I do drive to work, not just for my professional life, but I drive to work past the Legoland property. And I have actually had to call in a couple of times for things like dust control issues or runoff issues, just as I'm driving past on the highway. And like, I don't have a local stake in Legoland, right? Like, but I do have a stake in driving past the construction site on Route 17 on a foggy morning. So things like having an adequate staff who's able to respond quickly to those comments. I left messages with Goshen inspectors. I know that they are personally on the Legoland side super overwhelmed with all of the comments that they have been getting from their population, but I'm concerned that with these gigantic warehouses, similar things are going to happen for us here in Montgomery. And I want to make sure that we as a populace have a venue, a vehicle to provide those comments into the inspectors when it's necessary. We're talking about very large projects that are in front of the planning board and in front of this town board as well right now. And without adequate inspectors who are knowledgeable about the types of construction, the types of warehouses that are being put up, the types of retaining walls that are being proposed for some of these projects that are 40 feet tall or taller with dynamic loading from trailers on top of them. These are serious engineering issues. And right now, although we have great staff in the town of Montgomery, I don't think we have the specialists that we need. So we do need to be able to afford those specialists. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Back of the room, anybody else, public comment? Board? Motion closed?
I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so closed.
It's a special district.
Motion open,
I'll make that.
special districts?
The second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All open. Okay. This is the public hearing on the special districts, improvement areas, tentative assessment roles. Please take note that the Town of Montgomery Town Board has completed the separate tentative assessment roles in connection with the special districts and improvement areas listed below. Starting in this row, do we have a comment? Special districts? Back of the room? Yes, sir. Better take.
Not really comments, Corey Sahakis, I'm just curious, I'm a special districts, so I'm always interested in the money that we're collecting for Lakeview Water District. Every year I always come and I ask, you know, how much is my water gonna be? How much is the pool gonna be? And more importantly, how much money is in the fund that we have as residents on Lakeview? What is there now? Do you know that number by chance?
That number, is not separated out. It's all under.
I called because I know Corey comes.
Oh, okay.
So
That's fine. I just wanna know where I'm going
it's
with my
as
money.
of 12/31/18, your fund balance is 87,166,
And that's strictly just for Lakeview, right?
just for Lakeview.
So any problems I have on Lakeview, that's where that money's gonna go to.
Yes.
So that's earning interest, I'm
Yes.
assuming? Is that that's held in a bank? I remember talking
Just
a while
legal
back.
supplies.
It's held in the Lakeview account.
Thing. And then as far as, I mean, I didn't have time to look at the budget. Is my water fee going up? Is my pool fee going up this year? Not at all, it's gonna be zero, flat line.
We're fine. I didn't raise it, I don't know if what it is.
Hasn't tended, but,
There wasn't any change.
so it's the same last year then.
Were there any changes to the fees when we got there?
That's what we're doing now, settlements.
I didn't raise it.
No, there's no change.
Change, so it's flat, okay. Thank you, Mark, $87,000 in that fund right now. Thank
Well,
you.
December of 18, yes.
Okay. December 31st of 2018.
18.
So that's what you started this year with.
Okay, so obviously there's gonna be more. Oh, all right, thank you.
Anyone else on this side? Okay, starting this row down here, special districts. All the way to the back, anybody? Board?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Okay. Motion open?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make it.
Second. Motion. All in favor to open public hearing for the town budget? So moved. Okay, this is a public hearing for the town budget. Just for reference, this proposed council budget is $1.2 million higher than the budget I prepared, 10% higher, as a supervisor's budget. Therefore, I will be voting no on this budget. This is the council's budget. So any questions directed towards the board? Starting in this row, come on up.
Could you read those numbers again for me, please?
1.2.
What numbers? Well, you want the exact numbers?
No, well,
I can read the exact numbers for you. Just check out. So far. $1,183,811.54. It's 9.34% higher than I started my budget.
you're talking about,
My tentative budget I worked on for 3 months, yes.
and just let you know that right in your own office, you put out a budget that couldn't cover the 2019 actuals. So that's what the board had to deal with and made a realistic budget.
So noted. We didn't cut anything, we just raised it. So noted.
You put out a budget, Rod, that couldn't cover 2019 expenses.
That's your opinion.
Your own salary wasn't in that budget line.
Whatever. That's fine. Who's coming up? You're next, sir. Come on up.
Well, now I got two questions. Joe Keenan, I'll ask as chairman of the ethics board. I brought this up the last meeting. I think the supervisor was out. From the ethics board standpoint, as having a council, and there's no line item in the budget, and it was my understanding, and I would just want to make sure I got this correct, that if the ethics board needs counsel, the town has funds available in a contingency line. Does that make sense? Did I get that right? Because I need to report back to the board that, yes, if we ever need counsel, the town has somewhere to pay for said counsel. Or did I misunderstand that? And I think I'm entitled to an answer, even though this is a
I think you
hearing.
understood that correctly, Joe.
Thank you, Dan.
That's my opinion.
I appreciate that. My other question now is, as Joe Keenan, Montgomery, Barron Road, the proposed budget compared to last year's budget, what's the difference? If it went up, would you say 1.2 million? I'm trying to remember walking up here.
Give or take,
About,
yeah.
and the supervisor proposed a budget that was less than last year.
No, I said I was using a line item as an example.
Oh, yeah, now I'm asking about the overall budget. If last year was, I don't remember off the top of my head. You guys must know what it is.
Last year's budget total, 2019, was $13,248,903. This year's budget total is well, this is the tentative budget, or this is the preliminary, not the supervisors.
No, I don't want the supervisors.
Oh, all right,
I know what his is,
all right.
what you proposed.
13,851,502. I'm reading out of the right book here.
So 13.9 to 13.8? Basically, we're around.
No, last year was 13,200.
Oh, so it's up
This year is 13,800.
$600,000. Okay, thank you.
You sound like me.
Yeah. No, I'm good for now.
Okay, anybody towards this back row? Yes, come on up.
board budget, Mary Ellen Matisse,
Name
Village
name
of
and address,
Walden.
please. Welcome.
Village of Walden. Okay, well, number one, I just looked online for the budget tonight, and town clerk's stamp of approval said October 28th. So that was last week. So everybody here who's concerned about the budget had what, 7 or 8, 9 days to look at the budget? I mean, people do have lives, and the budget has to be approved by November 20th, and now all of a sudden, just now, we're getting a chance to see it. Okay. But I do have some comments, and that was first and foremost. Question about line 4540, ambulance. You're not dealing with the ambulance at all in this budget?
I put out, by the way, for people that are interested, I have some figures here if anybody wants to look at them. We're basically the flow from 18 to the preliminary 2020, and talks about fund balances and things and what's going on.
Because I think that,
And
I think
in
the
that,
public
we
is
also,
concerned,
Councilman
really
Lawson,
concerned.
I asked what we brought it up to be discussed. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna put any sort of monetary value in?
Well, you know, not to discredit the Wallkill Valley Cemetery, but we're given $85,000 to take care of dead people. How about some money to take care of living people?
I brought it up, I'm ready for discussion.
Well, I think the public is too, and the public would like to know what's going on, because I go back a long way on this library ambulance issue to before the Medicare billing, way before, 2004, 2005, I addressed this board. Some of you were here at the time. Dan was here. I think you might have been here at the time. Susan was supervisor. This has been going on forever in dealing with the ambulance corps. We can't have a community that feels secure and safe and not have an ambulance service. And we can't have all the development that's going on without an ambulance service. I mean, how is an emergency dealt with if they're not there? And we have no contract with Mobile Life or anybody else.
Yeah, if I may, we reached out, my office reached out to.
I don't know if anybody can hear you.
Not really.
You need to speak into the mic.
There's a handheld one there.
Yeah, it's stuck to the floor.
Sorry. My office reached out to the attorney for the ambulance company a couple of weeks ago to start the discussions about getting a contract going. One of the things that this board needs is the full financials to justify the monetary request of the ambulance company. We were told that that information would be sent to us and that we'd be working on it together with the attorney. We have received no communication since then. So it's not like this board, let me finish, please, and then I'll stop. This board directed my office to move forward and try and get a contract in place with the ambulance corps, and they're still considering doing that and willing to do that, but there can't just simply be a statement or a request in the contract saying we need X dollars without justification and without backup, because we're spending the town's money. So we're looking forward to receiving that information.
I think that we all understand that.
Okay,
I mean,
I just
this
wanna
is,
make sure
and
you
this,
understand.
this is not a new scenario. I'm going back, believe me, 15 years or more.
Okay.
With the ambulance corps and the village and the town board. And over the years, different things, you know, Tara, that have happened and gone on. And so it's not a new scenario. But you know what I think as public, as a member of the public and a taxpayer, the thing to me that's the most upsetting is that nobody realized how bad things were until it was like, but nobody was doing anything about it until they showed up here about a month ago or a month and a half ago. It was never a discussion, and I've been coming to town board meetings quite regularly over the past year and a half, and it was not even a discussion. I mean, if you're in a position of responsibility, you should know that things are that bad, not wait until 11:45 before the midnight hour strikes. And so that, to me, as a member of the public, is very disappointing. Because I really, I'm still a public official, an appointed public official on two different boards, two different communities. And having been an elected official, I felt that was my responsibility to know what was going on and to check on things constantly. And part of when I was an elected official, I was interfacing with this board about the ambulance corps. So it predated that, and it's still going on. And I was just appalled though when I pulled up the budget tonight and I saw that there was absolutely no provision at all. And I understand it's a two-way street, but it's gonna be a dead-end street for the rest of us if something isn't done. Literally, a dead-end street. And I've used the ambulance service for two different people who were dying. So let's, it just needs to be dealt with, and people have to reach out more to them and have a resolution before January 1st, before this budget is passed, November 20th. Something has to give here. We can't just go into the 2020 with no ambulance service. It's not the Middle Ages. So I'm going to leave that up to this board to deal with, because I'm contracting with them as a taxpayer to do that. Parks and Recreation, I see that all the parks money is still in the A fund. I've been complaining about that for years. Some things never change. I still think it's a town B fund item. And then I'm told, oh yeah, it got put in the B fund, and then the scuttlebutt is that, yeah, it gets put in the B fund, but then the money gets snuck into the A fund to be paid when it's time to be paid. So I'm still disappointed about that. I'm still also disappointed about, and I don't want to take money away from the town, but the 1% collection fee for the school taxes, $450,000 anticipated revenue in this budget. And I think that's grossly unfair to the taxpayers to pay 1%. With the new STAR regulations, STAR doesn't cover the fee. If people were under the old STAR, it covered the fee. You didn't pay. But under the new STAR, when you get your check back in the mail, you're not getting that fee reimbursed to you. So that's an out-of-pocket expense. Plus, why should it cost the taxpayers $450,000 to pay their school taxes when we've had village representatives go to the school board, and the school superintendent and the business officer at the time, this was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, said we could collect it just with the staff we have and not charge the taxpayers that extra 1%. So when's that going to be addressed? Why are you putting your hand in my pocket for a little bit extra gravy? And this has been going on for years. And the fact of the matter is we are one of only 2 towns in the whole county that is still doing this. It was something that was allowed in the 1960s. Everybody else has changed to having the school district collect the taxes at no charge to the taxpayers. And we're still doing it this way just to make a little extra gravy. I think it's grossly unfair to the taxpayers. And last but not least, and this kind of is exactly what Joe Keenan asked too, the Historic Preservation Commission, I asked to have some money put in the budget for us. I have no idea where our expenses get paid out of. We have mailings, certified letters that go out. I'd like to have some money for some training or for some workshops for the members, and we have no line item. I'm told, well, maybe it comes out of the historian fund. I don't know. Absolutely no information at all. So I'm with Joe Keenan on that one, and maybe when you solve his, you'll solve ours too. There's a bunch of commissions and councils in the town that have no line item. CAC has none either. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, right side, go on the back. That's Joe Keenan. Buddy. Front row. Just Sir, come on up.
Don Berger, Village of Montgomery.
Nice hat, I like it.
You like that? I thought you would. I just have general comments. I wasn't able to get or review the budget, probably because I anticipated that budgets would be handed out tonight so people can review them. Village budgets and all that kind of
There
stuff.
were two in the back.
There's about 100 people here.
It's been on the website, I know.
I know, but usually they're handed out, and that's the way I've always, I guess my bad, I should have looked on the website, but I thought they would be handed out. You know, the one thing I think that I hear a lot from people that speak here is that I know the board works very hard, I know the supervisor works very hard. And the problem is that you're all part-timers. In pay, in theory. My point to that is that, you know, they were just making comments about, you know, about the ambulance corps and how come something has been developed. The attorney brings up some wishy-washy stuff, but as Ms. Matisse says, it's been going on for 15 years. I think one of the things that this board should consider, and the town supervisor should consider, is that I believe that your job should be full-time, with a full-time wage and a full-time job, and you're here as long as these doors are open from AM to PM. I think that's the only way, if we're going to be a proactive community and think that we're the town of Montgomery, we're big, you know, we're going to move forward, that you can't be part-timers. I mean, and that's not your guys' fault, and ladies. It's not your fault. It's just the way you guys have been running business here for many, many years. I just really believe that somewhere along the line, perhaps, you would consider in your next budget, or however, or maybe for this budget, that the supervisor becomes a part-time, a full-time job. That I could walk into this building at any time and then the supervisor's here. I just think that's the way it should be. I think that's the only way for this town to conduct business. Again, I didn't review the budget, and the one thing that I'm really disappointed in, amongst other things, is the parks. I know Ms. Voss brought up about 6 months ago about the money that's in the Parks Department has never been used. I know that this budget, the last one I seen, I don't know if it was revamped during your new budget a couple weeks ago, there was a decrease in the Parks Department line. You know, I'm going to say, if this town is going to move forward, you can't have a Parks Department that has $50,000 in its budget. You know, the parks are for our youth and for adults is the backbone of this community. You have to have parks. With parks, you have to have employees that will work the parks, designated for parks, not for plowing, not for blacktopping, not for cleaning out gutters, parks. And I, for one, I only speak for myself, is that I would have no problem with an increase in taxes if those two little things that I just brought up were implemented. Not to mention the ambulance one. I mean, guys, everybody here has to admit that's a real boondoggle. You got to be out of your mind here, not having a proper ambulance corps working. And I think she's right when she says you've had many years to resolve this problem and you haven't done it. And I really think the town, you have to start thinking big. You have to start thinking smart. We have to start thinking like the town of Warwick thinks, the town of Cornwall thinks. Those are progressive towns and they're moving in the proper direction. This town is in Stagmire. They're doing nothing. You know, let's be professional. Let's be aggressive. Let's be progressive. Let's move forward. Be professional here. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Susan Cockburn, Town of Montgomery. Couple questions. Comptroller position, is that in the budget? Did you create a comptroller position in this town yet?
Sort of. It's not, we created, it was not a legal position.
Why not?
It's civil service.
You're
supposed to have a legal civil service comptroller position in the town of Montgomery.
Try.
Why is that not in the budget?
Public comment, that's
You
good.
have an elected official open the mail? Isn't that what a comptroller does? They take care of all that? She's got enough to do. Okay, this town is way overdue. You talk about ambulance corps, we are way overdue, separation of duties. We're supposed to have a comptroller's position created through civil service. That way, the town is protected. And it's absurd that y'all haven't done that. How about an MS4 enforcement officer? We've got projects coming in that are trying to be adapted to a 60-year-old plan. Do you have an MS4 code enforcement officer in the budget? Yes?
It's part of the building department.
Walt Schmidt is gonna
No.
do code, is there a code enforcement
Fire
officer?
engineering.
There's supposed to be someone, when you have big projects, that can call that person, similar to what Karina was talking about. Because that is how you set the town back decades by screwing up, not having a code enforcement officer. The other thing is, Joe Keenan brought it up first, and Mary Ellen Matisse. I wonder, can the ambulance corps afford an attorney? I had a garage built for them with a grant, and now the town somehow decided to charge them $600 a month to use a garage. So, I wonder if they even can afford an attorney. So my primary question was, what is the current town highway superintendent salary this year? Can you tell me that?
No, I can't.
72,286.
No.
No, I'm sorry, that's a supervisor. Superintendent of Highways is 73,419.
Okay, so I had sent in a FOIL request. The first one was back in June, then another one in August, and I did not get my FOIL request returned to me until November 4th, this week.
They were looking into HIPAA law.
Yeah, I don't understand where HIPAA comes in when you're just talking dollar values and not
But it was specific
treatments.
to the superintendent himself,
Okay.
not.
So my question is, the salary went from 2009, it was increasing along with the rest of the board, and then it precipitously dropped in for the 2015 year, and it went lower 2016, and 2017 lower, 18 low, 19 low, now it's back up. And when I checked, it was only 2 years of buyouts, but I researched and did all the numerical values, and none of this works out. So I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm glad that Sean is gonna get a decent wage now, but I still can't figure out, why did the town do all this with these highway superintendent's salary, going like, woo? Does he like that? Is that why he left? Should I give this to you? Did you ever look at this?
Oh.
Pardon?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what did
I
you
looked at it
think?
before I was elected.
What's the reason for
I have
this?
no idea.
Because Todd told me it was buyout, but when I got I got the salary individual buyout and the salary family value. I did a Excel spreadsheet, I did all the numerical values, and none of it makes sense.
Well,
Do you want this?
I don't know, I got it.
So now he's gonna get 73,419. That's about where it should be after all that missing money. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, you're on the right side, but you can come up anyway, come on up. That's okay, come on up.
Good evening, Fran Fox, Pisonia, Montgomery. I'm trying to look at the budget online, and I have a question. It came up at the forum that was held in regards to insurance costs for members of the.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, this is.
Pull that out.
Short people. Fran Fox Bezonia, Montgomery. An issue came up at the forum for candidates night, and I'm hearing the concerns around the ambulance corps, and I'm wondering what the cost is for insurance for town council, part-time town council members. And I know, I'm looking in the budget right now. Does anybody have access to a sheet that can actually pull that up? Because it's difficult to see.
Family plan, or are you looking for like a single plan?
Well,
or
I know that
your
it was an issue that
buyout?
came up that, that I believe insurance was paid for part-time.
It's different for different people, whether they're family plan, single plan, or whether they get a buyout.
I guess all three would be good to have, and I'm wondering if that information can be brought forth tonight and considered as something to consider modifying in the budget and moving it towards supporting the ambulance corps. Throwing that out there. Does somebody have those figures?
Round number or what? You go get it, I know the round numbers, but it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I just.
You're looking nearly 30,000 a year for a family plan. Or 20, is that 20, right?
So let's just say it's
Mark, what do we
20.
have, about 9,400, 9,500 for buyout?
So it's 33%.
So we could be looking at $50,000 at the minimum, and possibly 150 at a maximum.
Because you consider at the post-retirement benefits nearly 20 million at this point, because we're including not only the as previously we only included the ones that retired. Now we're including ones that are actually retired and the ones we hire.
Right.
So we're at nearly almost or double our budget if you look at it.
Right, well, I don't think we can do
$20
anything
million.
about anybody that we promised to do anything
So
for when they were.
that's growing, and that's it's right. If you're we're projecting it out as you hire people to say, hey, we're going to be next year could be 25 million. You know.
Well, I'm not talking about staff. I'm talking about members of the council.
Oh, I got you. I know what you're saying.
So how does that get decided, and is that something that can be put up for consideration as a budget modification to support the ambulance corps?
I agree.
I mean, I'm putting that out there. Something's got to be cut so that something can be expended, right?
I want to cut.
Well, what is being proposed, I guess, to meet the budget where it needs to be and to consider modifying the budget? Do you have are there any proposals out there for how to meet the shortfall of the ambulance corps?
I've been working on it since I got here.
So what's the answer?
So I mean, I deal with budgets all the time. And
Basically,
so we have a budget, we have expenditures, we have revenue, and we have to sometimes take a look at our expenditures and say, okay, as much as we'd love to spend money there, we can't because we have to spend money here. So I think it's about where do we have to spend the money, and then where are the optional things that we're spending money on that would be great if we had the revenue, but we don't have the revenue. And so I'm wondering when those will be proposed. When will there be options for you all to consider? And possibly one of them could be taking a consideration if not all part-time, I believe not all part-time staff in this town are getting insurance. Is that accurate? So that would be something that I would suggest be put on that proposal list. Thank you.
Thank you. This side. Come on, sir.
Good deal.
Welcome.
Mel Westberg, Dan.
Dana Westenberg from Walden.
Village of Walden. First thing let's talk about is give this to you. This is for you. You're welcome. Speaking about the library, Josephine Louise Public Library. Last year, you guys increased the budget for that.
Mel, can't hear you. Hi.
Last year.
It's on, you just gotta get closer to it.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yeah, just put it closer to your mouth.
Yeah, it's okay. A little closer.
Well, it's still not tall enough, it's, yeah.
I shoveled, so.
So I wanted to thank you guys for the support you gave last year, and here this year it's in the budget. I feel before you vote, you should know what you get. The Josephine Louise Public Library is the only full-service library in the town of Montgomery. It is the only one the state recognizes as a full-service library, and it's a great bang for the buck. I want to repeat that. You're getting a great value here. The Josephine Public Library also looks for other funding sources. We have the last 9 years, got $157,000 in grants to do projects, community programs, sorry. This library has sent out over, 15,000 materials to other libraries and brought in 12,000 library materials to our village and our town. The library's also been very fiscally responsible, and we have updated our library in the last 10 years. You have been in, you've seen downstairs, it's completely redone, made it modern, brought in more computers. Upstairs, we've also done the new children's library, brought in lights so you can actually see and read, brought in computers for the kids. My daughter's gonna speak onto that. Just go like this. Good.
Hello, I'm Jada Westenberg. I want to tell you about the Josephine Louise Library in Walden. The library is an amazing place. They just renovated the children's section with the addition of computers for children. I would like to invite you to come and see it. Thank you.
You're all welcome. Bring your grandkids. They will have a great time. Come yourself. There's all sorts of great stuff. We can continue doing the great work we're doing there with your support, and we appreciate you providing that support to us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next. Back row. Yes, sir.
Jim Taylor, Neely Town Road, resident of town of Newburgh. Can you hear me? I have just two items, being a 20-some-year business guy on Neely Town Road. The first one is water and sewer. I watched this town board with millions of dollars in the agricultural district funds, and yet every meeting that I've ever been involved in, somebody is always complaining or have a problem with water and sewer. I just heard Lakeview Estates. I don't even know if they can drink the water. Half the time I don't know if they can flush their toilet. And yet we got funds, cash, sitting there. And I don't understand why we're not using any of that money to work. Put it to work. You know, if we got something committed for the agricultural district, I believe in agriculture, I believe in open space, I believe in the environment. But if we got water that's killing people, they can't drink it, something's wrong. Scott's Corners, no water and sewer. On the Four Corners, we've got millions of dollars of business people's investment. Millions of dollars. And half the people don't even know that they don't have water and sewer. The past supervisor has property on the Four Corners. Wetlands behind it. What does she do for water and sewer? Used to have the restaurant, I don't know if we still have it or not. But good example. I mean, what do? Properties for sale, they gotta give it away with no water and sewer. All Four Corners. The water and sewer is broken underneath 84. The connection. Why don't we get it fixed? Come on, guys. Like the people that have talked about a progressive town. We gotta fix stuff, and we gotta spend the money. And I don't think people will, not that anybody likes a tax increase, but I don't think people would be upset if they had to have a tax increase, but the money was being spent and well spent. You know, when you go to the planning board in the public hearings, in the public meetings, the first thing that comes up with from the environmental community is water and sewer. And yet, we don't do anything to correct it. We talk about it, we complain about it, but nobody ever does anything about it. And I think it's time that if you're gonna be a progressive community, which we are, we wanna be, we have to do something about it. So, Mr. Dempsey, we're sorry to see you leave.
Some probably are.
I'm one. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Jim.
Anyone else? Over there, big guy. Come on up.
Why not?
Probably don't need the microphone.
Yeah, probably not. So I'm Kyle Shrutt. I'm the president of Town Montgomery Ambulance. I'm sure everybody's been talking about it. So just kind of trying to clear up some certain things obviously have been going on. I know that the lawyers have been talking. Our lawyers have been talking back and forth. Luckily, our lawyer does help us out. He does a lot of pro bono stuff for us, so that does help out with a lot of costs. So we don't have to pay him an arm and a leg. But one thing I'm just like, I feel like it's a longer process and takes longer. Just I feel like it's like we explain like what we're looking to do, and then they want more and more information, which I have no problem giving. But it just seems like every time I give more and more information, it just keeps on going and going and going. So I mean, like, let's call it what it is. The ambulance corps, you need. Not according to the state, you don't, but you need it. And right now, with a lack of people, lack of volunteers, lack of EMTs, lack of paramedics, in general, everybody's hurting. Commercial agencies, volunteer agencies. It's all over. It's everywhere. Unless you're Warwick. But, sorry, tax district, so they get plenty of money. You know, so let's call it what it is. You know, it's just more lines if the community wants to be more involved. And anybody wants to volunteer for our ambulance corps, we gladly have them come in and volunteer. But volunteerism is not where it used to be. You know, people used to leave their jobs to go volunteer on a call or whatever, whether it's the fire department or the ambulance corps. You just can't do that anymore. You can't leave your job anymore just to go volunteer to go help people. So, you know, and money's not what it was back then, you know? A lot of the guys had more skills. They used to help fix things. So it's not like now where not many skills are out there for everything, you know, and as Rod would attest to. You know, I can't say anything bad, you know, he's been helping us out as best he can. He doesn't know much about the ambulance corps, which I don't know much about what Rod does, you know, when it comes to his job at, you know, his personal job. But a good example of just how money goes fast, we just had a transmission in our oldest ambulance that just dropped. So I just had to shell out $6,000 for a trainee for an ambulance, you know. So just unexpected expenditures, you know, just keep kicking me in the butt. So I don't know. Like I said, everybody has my number, or they have my email. It's on the website. So if they have any questions or if they have any concerns, you can always call me. We can talk about it. I know the lawyers are going back and forth, but let's call it what it really is. That's a lengthy process in general. Lawyers go back and forth. It takes too long to do. So I mean, just gotta figure out something, because it's November already, and I'm trying to put this town towards the future. It's hard to get paramedic services right now. Mobile Life is way above and beyond what they can do now. I mean, you know, they had to pull back, you know, from helping out the agencies that they don't have contracts with, like Montgomery, Newburgh. You know, when they can provide a service to us, like medic-wise, which is, you know, for ALS, they can give it to us. But and honestly, nowadays it's a whim. You know, it's hard for me to get a mobile life unit for a medic to come into my town because they're too busy covering their calls, which I can't blame them. They're a commercial agency; they gotta stay afloat. So, you know, when you get them, you get them. You know, it's nice of them to at least help us when they can, and I appreciate all the help they can give us when they can give it. Because we're short. It's just short. You know, short EMTs, short paramedics. It's a statewide thing. So, but again, like I said, if anybody has any questions, oh yeah.
Did anybody meet with you since the last time you were here?
No, they've been doing it mainly through my lawyer. Nobody. has physically met with me since the you know, I guess the lawyers are kind of handling it, so. But, again, you know, it's one of those things that's just gotta, you know, kind of get the ball rolling, that's all. That's all I'm asking for. I'll meet with you guys anytime I want. I'm home almost 4 days a week, so. And I can always meet up with you, whether it's my lawyer's involved in what we gotta do to get it done, you know? And again, if you have any questions, you can always call me yourself or email me. I think Rod's got my number, so. Brad Pinsky. Again, so I don't want to take more time up, but if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me or call me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Board?
I was thinking.
Motion closed?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, you wanna date for that,
Budget has to be adopted by November 20th. Your next meeting is November 21st.
you wanna move the meeting to the 20th?
Let's move the work session.
Work session.
20th. It's the night before.
So what's it by law?
I think there won't be another meeting before that. Work on this.
Now you wanna schedule a special meeting to work on the budget?
Yeah, I think we have to.
So,
Maybe like that Monday or Tuesday.
see you guys.
We can still wait till the 20th to do another meeting
We-
besides.
Yeah, I mean, you should move the work session to the 20th, and then you have, pick a date
Monday or Tuesday.
of next week.
Same. Or the week of the budget adoption.
That would be either the 18th or the 19th. Monday's the 18th, Tuesday's the 19th.
Yeah, just changes.
So you wanna do, so do someone,
So make it Monday. On Monday?
the
Like,
18th.
however it works for, some 6. I mean, I could be here at 5:30. So make it 5:30 on Monday. Thank you.
So, someone wanna make a motion
I'll
to
make that motion.
have a special meeting for the specific purpose of going over the budget on Monday the 18th, at 5:30. And also to move the regular work session from Thursday, the 21st of November to Wednesday, the 20th, for purposes of adopting or voting on the budget pursuant to Town Law, Section 109.
And that would make.
Is that a second
6
motion?
o'clock.
The work session?
The 20th will stay
Yeah,
at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. So that's the motion somebody needs to make. So,
You're gonna do both of them?
yeah, you can make one motion.
So I'll make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who made the last Do we have any? So the 18th at 5:30 and the 20th at 6 o'clock, both of those have to be noticed?
Yeah.
We have to do a notice. We have no public, we have no public hearing set. I don't have anything written.
It's a work session.
Yeah.
We can call the Monday night work session also.
Special meeting.
On the budget.
It can be a special meeting or a work session, whatever you want. Doesn't-
I would say it should be a work session.
Okay, new business. seek a determination decision regarding sailfish zone change. A. Pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, Article 8 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law and Implementing Regulations 16 NYCRR Part 617, the Town of Montgomery Town Board and the Town Board involved agency makes the findings below. Project Sailfish. Project sponsor, Blue Water Industrial Partners, LLC. BWI or the applicant. One Tower Bridge, 100 Front Street, Suite 570, Hampshire, Pennsylvania.
Conshohock.
Thank you. Add to that. What is the line to that?
Resolution.
Yeah, I can do it. Yep. Okay. Interest of full disclosure, make the following comments prior to voting on the zone change, which most of you in this room all for it. During the calendar years of 2018, 2019, I received no campaign donations to either petitioner or owners of the parcel subject to the zoning map and amendment petition. In 2018, I sold parts worth $170 used parts to Arkell Motors, the shareholders of the Arkell, also the members of LVL Realty owners of the parcels comprising Sailfish site. This is a one-time transaction. Arkell is neither a current or nor a potential customer or client of myself or my business. I have no intention of conducting any other business personally, either through my company or any other petitioners in related property in the future. Accordingly, after carefully reviewing the town ethics law, there is no reason why I am not precluded from voting on this application. For the record.
So we have to accept
You have the resolution. Yes, part of the resolution is accepting the resolution is adopting the finding statement.
So I'll make that motion to adopt the finding statement. Read it?
And I'll just read the resolve. Everybody have the resolution?
Yeah.
Now therefore, it is hereby resolved as follows. I'm sorry, the title of the resolution. Resolution of the Town Board of the Town of Montgomery adopting local law number 8 of 2019.
That'll be 7.
I'm sorry, 7. It was intro 7. Intro. Local law number 7 of 2019, amending the town zoning map and adopting a secret finding statement. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved as follows. Town Board of the Town of Montgomery hereby certifies that it is complied with the requirements of Part 617 of the secret regulations. 2, the Town Board hereby adopts the next secret finding statement dated November 7th, 2019 in its entirety, which is incorporated herein by reference, and adopts the Planning Board finding statement dated September 24, 2019 in its entirety, which is incorporated herein by reference. Number 3, Town Board hereby adopts local law number 7 of 2019, which amends the zoning map and modifies section 50-20 of the Town of Montgomery zoning code as set forth in the proposed local law, to change from IB to I-2 those portions of the property designated as tax map parcel numbers 31-1-64 and 31-1-65.22. Copy of the local law is attached to the resolution. And the town clerk is hereby directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and in the local law book of the Town of Montgomery, to give due notice of the adoption of said local law to the Secretary of State of New York, publish said local law to the public in a newspaper of general circulation, to publish any necessary statements regarding the action in the environmental notice bulletin of the Department of Environmental Conservation. If someone wants to make the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Call the roll.
Roll call.
Councilman Voss.
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Councilman Dempsey?
Nay.
No. Councilwoman Miller?
Yes.
Councilman Hoyt?
Yes.
Supervisor Winchell?
Yes.
By a supermajority of the board of the Town Board of Montgomery, the motion carries, seeker is adopted, and the local law is adopted. We'll note for the record that a petition was received pursuant to section 265 of the town law, protesting the application and the petition, but without the town board ruling on the validity of that petition, it's rendered moot by a supermajority of the board voting in favor of the petition. Thank you.
Can I just ask who seconded that motion? Okay, Sherry made it.
I believe it's supervisor. Supervisor.
Yes, for a second.
I asked for a second.
Who
Yeah.
seconded?
Cindy?
Yeah.
Oh,
She's so quiet down there.
okay. It's adopted.
Yep.
Next.
Next, the
Public hearing.
Excuse me, can I get a copy of the resolution and find it?
If you give me your card, I'll email it to you. Well, if you wanna wait till later, I'll make a copy for you. This is my only copy.
Set a public hearing, the town water and sewer for extension for Medline.
The meetings in November, December would be December 5th. Is the regular one at 7 p.m. No, December 19th is the work session. I don't have it for January.
January.
What you have to say, January.
Probably the first Thursday.
Do it with December.
December 5th is your first regularly scheduled meeting.
Do that, right? December 5th.
December what?
Motion for December 5th, anybody have a problem with that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's for both of them?
So moved.
That's for the water and the sewer,
Yes, sir. That's what I have.
So December 5?
Yes, sir.
Do you need two motions for that?
Is there?
Yes.
Sorry.
Two separate motions.
Oh, okay. So the first
There's
one's
another
water.
time.
7 p.m. or as soon thereafter.
Yeah, today's the 7th, you can get the notices. So the first one, was a motion to set the public hearing for a water extension for Medline.
We need a motion for sewer extension.
Yes, we need
I'll make that
motions for both.
I'll second that as well.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is the
Drug and alcohol.
drug and alcohol.
Transportation.
No, that's right.
You have that resolution?
I don't. This one's it's the resolution of the town board of the town of Montgomery adopting the update of the dial bus and alcohol policy.
Drug and alcohol.
Drug and alcohol.
There was one, someone want a second for discussion? There a motion?
Motion for discussion.
Motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Someone want a second for discussion?
Discussion.
If I could just advise the board on this, the last policy was adopted back in 2018. The one change for 2019 is in subsection M, discussing non-fatal accidents and when drug and alcohol testing may be required for town employees in the dial-a-bus service. The change that was made and recommended to the town board by transportation coordinator and by the rules promulgated by Federal Department of Transportation. The section used to read, for non-fatal accidents, a post-accident test of the employee operating the public transportation vehicle will be conducted if an accident occurs and at least one of the following conditions is met. It used to read, the accident results in injuries requiring immediate medical treatment away from the scene, and the covered employee may have contributed to the accident. The change, which I think makes sense, is it will now read, the accident, if the accident results in injuries requiring immediate medical treatment away from the scene, unless the covered employee can be completely discounted as a contributing factor to the accident. So it tightens it up. If somebody is involved in an accident, they have to be completely discounted to be.
Who makes that determination?
I was gonna say the same thing.
That's generally going to be the responding officers, and
I guess in theory,
yeah.
could, I mean, but where's the conflict of interest come into play though, as far as?
Well, you're not supposed to respond first,
you know,
any town
Yeah.
accident is supposed to
So
go
I
to
guess
any.
the state police will have to determine that.
Yeah, and this is really exclusive to dial-a-bus, so it makes it a little bit more stringent. Otherwise, the regulations were not changed at all.
Is there a time limit when that drug test has to be administered? The guy can't show up.
Yeah, that's within, no, it's immediate. That's already in the policy. That's not a change. That's already on the books. They do it at scene, so there's no gap. They're sent right away. In the unlikely, hopefully unlikely event that happens, they would be sent right away. That's all. I just wanted to let the board know what the change was, because that was the only. Everything else is the same from last year's policy. Call the roll. So we have a motion.
I'll make it.
You already made a motion. Right? Somebody,
Oh, that's what you're saying, second.
and somebody seconded for discussion. So. Okay, so let me just vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call.
Yeah.
The approval of the minutes.
I didn't get a chance to do them, I've been on the road constantly.
Nobody's responding back to me.
All right, so still leave it open, table it? Okay. Who would get, item E, recognition of Todd Page for 30 years of town service. Who would that go?
Yay!
I see you came dressed up tonight.
I got dressed up just for this. My favorite retirement time right there.
Regular work uniform.
Thank you.
You don't want me to touch this, do you?
Not if you're sick.
Yeah.
I have to go watch. Put that down the list.
40 years. Now, this is where your sweatpants.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Appointment of highway superintendent. The resolution of town board of town of Montgomery appointing Sean C. Mears as the interim acting highway superintendent of highways. Stand up to be recognized, you guys.
Starting when?
Congratulations.
You starting now?
The ninth.
You can start now.
Starting now.
You can't leave early though.
Motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Do we have to set a time at 12:01 or?
Well,
He
so
actually,
moved.
yeah, he actually, there's some
blanks you gotta fill in the resolution, which I will do. Whereas the town interim acting superintendent of highways, Todd Siege, is retiring effective November 9th, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. And then the next blank will say, whereas as of November 10th, 2019, there will exist a vacancy in the town superintendent of highways position. So I will fill that in the resolution.
And Stephanie sent you over the corrected ones, Councilman Dempsey had noticed an error earlier, at the bottom.
We're not gonna let Todd out.
Yeah, we're gonna keep him.
They
Oh,
had
yeah,
you
for the term
filling in.
expiring on December
on the
31st.
bottom of page
retired.
1, does it say Sean Merritt's at the bottom? And the first page. Yeah, let's see if we have the correct. Yeah, this is the correct one. That's good.
Item G, appointment of deputy highway superintendent. Dear Supervisor Rodney Winchell, board members, I'd like to appoint Lane Petzel. How do you say that? To the position of deputy highway superintendent as of November 9th, 2019. Stand up and be recognized, sir.
What's he have, 19 years on already? Okay, yes. 19?
Lane has been with the town for 19 years.
Thank you.
He's an average woodman craftsman. I can't even say it. Avid, thank you. Avid. Makes great cutting boards, other items.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. I think you can weld too, right? A little bit.
A little bit.
Hold on.
There's some.
And I gotta do it.
Yeah, that's one next. Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I did read this. Dear Supervisor Rodney Winchell and town board members, I'd like to reappoint Anna O'Donnell as confidential secretary and superintendent of highways as of November 9th, 2019. Anna will continue to oversee the responsibility, administration, and management, payroll, purchase, ordering, and for our department, and working together with other departments in the town of Montgomery, as she has been doing a great job so far. Anna here?
No. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, sir. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Higher, right? Okay, town board meeting November 7th, highway department, we have a new hire, David Cerrone, November 25th, 2019. Probation 6 months, starting salary 25-21. Salary increase per board, salary increase effective per board. Sean, anything? Sorry.
Yeah, we had an interview with him. We had to interview a few people, but he was, I feel, the most qualified to really throw a lot on the table for the town. Yes, fabrication experience, welding, and I plan on
Gonna give him a run for his money, you know.
having a good teacher to, you know, show him the ropes of what to do and what we need, and I think that's.
Position?
MEO.
Yeah. He's got a Class B CDL, a lot of people that have applications and don't have one, so, you know, out of all the ones we do have, it's like a handful with CDL.
He said he does do overhead welding better than Blaine.
We'll find out.
Competition. Well done.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Make the motion.
A second.
Favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Next. Old business here.
Old business.
Old business.
I do have.
Yep, pilot, Ridgerello Solar Pilot Agreement.
it's just, at this point, for the board to approve. I think all the changes were made that were requested by board members, and Stephanie have been working on this, and I think it's ready for approval unless anybody has any other changes.
Any comments, changes?
Looks good. Looks good.
Motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hoyt, motion.
Oh,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, so next one, the old business, acceptance of Parsonage Farm Lane. Resolution of the town board of the town of Montgomery accepting a deed of lands compromising Parsonage Farm Lane for dedication in connection with the Brick Church Meadows. Sean, what do you got on that, or Todd, whatever? Go good?
Did a walkthrough, it was all good. We
Everything's
had
good
Iowa
there.
with us.
Yeah, Mike was there, Iowa was there with us.
There's trees in the road, right? There's trees in the road?
That was all good to go.
I have the original letter of credit to deliver to the town clerk from the applicant. Someone just needs to make a motion on this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Pass that to the clerk, please.
What's item C, we signed that joint meeting?
No. The C is the documents for Post Road Estates. I don't think you have anything that's on this one.
Add on?
It was added to the agenda, you already have the resolution.
Okay, resolution of town board of the town of Montgomery authorizing acceptance of all documents for the Post Road Estates and subdivision.
Someone wanna make a motion in seconds for discussion, so I can update the board by discussion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, this was previously on the agenda, and at that point, we had gone through the documents, but the town engineer had not gone through the descriptions, the meets and bounds descriptions that were proposed and submitted with the papers. We sent the documents to Mazer, our engineers. They went through everything and they're satisfied with all of the property descriptions. We also got documentation from Mazer that the bond associated with the remaining work should be $239,601.83, which is a reduced bond amount because there has been some completion of work. The documents were reviewed as previously, and at this point, everything's good to go from legal and engineering. I would recommend to the board at this time to accept the resolution and also set the reduced bond amount at $239,601.83, subject to planning board approval of the bond amount.
All right, that's why I don't have anybody's signature.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because that bond amount will be subject to the planning board. And I had sent communications to planning board attorney, and they'll be taking it up, but that amount is sufficient. It was signed off on by Mazer. There you go.
Should they adopt this tonight, DocuSign?
No, subject to waiting for the
Okay.
planning board. But the amount, the board can approve the amount and authorize the supervisor to sign it after approval from the planning board.
Discussion. Need a motion. You have a motion in a second, you, all in favor?
Aye.
No, we just made a motion for discussion.
You seconded
No,
for
but we
discussion.
have, that's what we have the
Seconded
motion.
for discussion, so you just need a vote.
Oh, yeah, we need-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that motion includes the authorized supervisor to sign after the planning board approves it.
And approve the bond amount of $239,601.83. That's that. Just moving the info annexation forward, I mean, the board needs to, I believe this evening, the Village of Montgomery is doing their voting on the secra.
Village of Walden.
I'm sorry, Village of Walden is voting for seeker on that, and Town board still needs to finalize the land use agreement. And if the board has any, I think this board may still have some further questions about lighting or soil issues that have to be looked at. So we do need, once we find out that the seeker was adopted by the Village of Walden, we'll need a certified resolution to that effect for this board to take any further action. That's about it on that, unless anybody, does everybody have a copy of the land use agreement that was, Tara, I think everybody has it.
Yeah, Tony sent it, Stephanie sent it.
Yeah, we're gonna have some comments on that we're gonna wanna talk about with the board. Maybe we'll do that at the work session on the 20th. Maybe left. Well, it's nothing to table tonight, it's just a question of putting that on the agenda to talk to the board about it and see if anybody has, we have a couple issues with that agreement, which I'm sure can be fixed up pretty easily. And that was it.
That's it.
Can we just go back to the public hearing for amending the zoning to add requirements for as-built plans? We did not adopt that law, we just closed the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Thing I had, supervisors, I just want to let everyone know that on Sunday, November the 10th, at 1 o'clock, there will be a ceremony at over at the Walden Veterans Memorial Park for Veterans Day.
Here Monday.
See to it that you're there.
How about Monday for us?
Yeah, I was gonna let you do that.
Oh, go ahead.
It will be here, held at Town Hall on Monday, November the 11th at 11 a.m., I believe, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. As usual.
Anybody would like to speak? We're looking for speakers. Then we got some veterans in the audience. Mr. Reber in the back of the room, good speaker. Okay. Next we have a privilege of the floor. Speaker, we're gonna start, same thing I'll do down this row. Go ahead and name and address. 5-minute time limit, please. Be civil and courteous to all. And watch your enthusiasm. So, you have one young lady in front of you. Okay.
Oh, one in front of you.
You can go first, Rita, I
Doesn't
won't
matter.
fight you.
That's not what I heard.
No, 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 you
Come
go.
on up.
Hello, I'm Rita Santo from Chandler Circle in Montgomery.
Welcome.
Montgomery. And I'm also a board member for the Montgomery Senior Center. Last year and every year, we do get money from the town to run the senior center. We pay salaries and things like that. And I'm looking at the budget here, and it looks like there's not as much money, like half as much money or less than half as much money in the budget allocated for seniors. And I hope that's not I hope I'm looking in the wrong spot, because it looks like we won't have any money to pay our salary next year. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lynn Thompson, Village of Walden.
Welcome.
And Brian Sebring, Village of Walden.
Does that mean you get 10 minutes?
I've been coming before the board as the liaison for my village, discussing the Hill Street Bridge since 2017. I know there's been back and forth dialogue between your town board and the highway department if they truly indeed are going to fix the bridge. A comment had been made, I believe at your August 2019 work session, that people in the Village of Walden were not interested in having that bridge fixed. Brian and I both found that to be a little disconcerting, so we have been working to gather signatures from people in our village, town of Montgomery, to say that that's not true, that there's great interest in having that bridge repaired after 7 years. There were 2 New York State DOT funding opportunities that the town opted not to participate in. $400 million was allocated for bridge repairs and maintenance all across New York State. So we went door to door, neighbor to neighbor, We have people from the village, the town, business owners that do not live in the village and the town, but their businesses are in the village of Walden. I also have enclosed for you 3 letters, one from the police department, the fire commissioners, and the ambulance corps, explaining why you don't ever want to purposefully shut down access routes in a municipality. So I'm assuming you need this for the record.
We get to hear from Brian too?
No.
Come on, Brian, you're up there.
Thank you.
We worked hard to get all those signatures from many, many people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Ron Feller, Town of Montgomery. We're talking about the veterans tomorrow morning at the Montgomery Elementary School at 9:45. There's going to be a little celebration by the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders out in their playground, weather permitting, and they're inviting all veterans to come and say hello. There'll be a little bit of coffee and donuts later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Red book.
Me again, Mary Ellen Ortiz, Walden. Thanks, Lynn and Brian, for doing all the legwork. But they're already over a year into their notice of defect on the Hill Street Bridge. And notice of defect's a serious item. So hopefully you will take it seriously and fix the bridge. Number 2 item is now that we've signed on to the New York State Climate Smart Initiative, the CAC, the Walden Women's Club, and the Josephine Louise Public Library, the best library in town. Oh, I better not say that. I'll offend somebody in the other villages. We're sponsoring a meeting program on what it means to be climate smart. We're going to have the showing of the film Paris to Pittsburgh at the meeting. It's going to be on a Saturday because it was the only day that the village hall was available, and so many things go on there that I couldn't get the room any other time. But maybe that'll be good for some people, and some young people will come out, and this will help fulfill some of the educational requirements under the Climate Smart Initiative, so hopefully it'll help the village and the town when they go for their grant approvals.
Thank you.
Wow.
I didn't know if you were waiting for that. I'm Barbara Lerner. I own the property on 747 and 17K. I did just receive a note from Jeff, and he said that what he's looking for is not only the resolution, but the finding statement, not the planning board's version, but your version of the finding statement with today's date.
Okay. I have Mr. Baker's card,
Okay.
and I will email that to him. Either tomorrow or Monday, where I'll try and get it done tomorrow. I'm not gonna be in my office, but I'll see if I can get somebody to send it to him.
Okay, that would be great. My other question concerns the comprehensive plan. I spoke with the planners yesterday, and they said they had not heard from you as yet regarding the question for including obtaining grant funding for infrastructure. They haven't been contacted, and I don't remember if it was the last town board meeting or one before that, that you had said that you were going to reach out to them to find out if they were capable of doing that. They haven't been contacted yet.
No, I mean, I don't know if the supervisor contacted them.
Well, they haven't been contacted, so I mean, it would be really great if we could actually do something with the comp plan, get it moving forward.
Okay.
I mean, we've lost substantial time.
So on and so on.
Next. Bob, sir.
My name is Bruce Schaefer, and I'm here to present an award to Mr. Rod Winchell for fixing and working on all.
Can't hear
Can't hear you, Bruce.
This gentleman is fixing.
We can't hear you. You gotta
No,
speak into the mic.
I'm speaking.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, Mr. Winchell is fixing our house, and that's the Benedict Farmhouse. And the Benedict Farmhouse is very important to me. It's because my grandfather was born in the house. Mr. Winchell?
Thank you, sir.
This is your.
To wash it.
Thank you, sir.
It's got a cold.
It's nice right there too.
Beautiful, thank you. Next. And this side. Back of the room. Good.
Don Berger, Montgomery, the Village of Montgomery. Back in July.
Nice hat.
Keep the smile on your face. Back on July 31st, I put a complaint in to the Ethics Board. I think you guys, everybody here has received the response from the Ethics Board on this, have you not? Everybody? Okay, so the Ethics Board, basically I'll just read the last paragraph. Therefore, it is the opinion of the Town of Montgomery Ethics Board that a conflict of interest and violation of the town ethics law exists in this matter. And the matter that was beforehand was on one of the IDA board members, Matthew Stoddard. If you read the whole thing, and I certainly hope you all did, there's about 4 different violations here that the Ethics Board reviewed that I did complain about. I guess the bottom line is I did email Supervisor Winchell on this as to how he's going to proceed, basically. And the only response I got back was, thank you for your opinion. I don't think that's the answer to my question. So my question is, before this board right now is, are you going to proceed on this? Are you going to move forward on it or not?
My opinion would be we have to speak to council.
Okay, well, it's been quite a while, and when do you plan on doing that? I mean, see, that's the problem we brought up earlier in the evening. Here is that the board seems to just delay everything. Instead of moving forward on things, you guys keep on delaying things. You know, you should have had a meeting with the poor ambulance corps, and you didn't do that after he had come in here. You guys should have met with that man, and you didn't do that. And here, time has passed. We won't get into the comprehensive plan. You guys have delayed that for years. But here we are on this one here. This was filed July 31st.
I just received a letter not that long.
Not that long ago, but you should have, actually, as soon as receiving that, I would think that you had reached out to your council and met on it and made a decision on it. I hope that you guys will make a decision on this and remove Mr. Stoddard from the board. If you didn't, what's the point of you having a town ethics board? I know the year and a half that I've been coming to these meetings, nothing, to my knowledge, has ever been brought up from the ethics board to this board. Here they finally brought something up, and you're not acting on it, or you're not even having a discussion on it. It would seem to me that if you have an ethics board, use it. Listen to what they're saying here. This is something that I think is extremely important. Basically, bottom line, you know, what's been going on here in this town for the past year and why we've been packing this house in. This has a lot to do with that. We're asking, or I'm asking for you guys to remove him from the board and appoint somebody that does not have a conflict. With that, hopefully you guys will meet and get back to us on it.
Thank you, sir. Anybody? Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Yep, you're next. You're next, contestant.
I just want to say, sparked my memory, Susan Cockburn. Speaking of delays, when the tragedy happened with Barney Van Dyke, that was immediately adjacent to my property. They waited 25 minutes for an ambulance. We ended up going in a helicopter instead to Westchester Medical. There's serious ramifications here with this total neglect of duty. And I really, you know, I don't know if it would have worked out any different, but it was really frightening for all the people involved to wait that long.
Thank you. Next. Yes, ma'am.
Karina Tipton. I came in hot about secret, so I want to talk to you about secret. During the course of this meeting, I learned that the town of Montgomery is waiting politely for the Walden secret process to be completed for the Amthorpe property before they take any action on the annexation. And I'm up here because I also heard during this meeting that you are not waiting for the conclusion of the secret process for the Medline warehouses before you take action by a public hearing for extending the water line for Medline, which is at their request. The draft environmental impact statement has been public commented on and has not been finalized. There is no final environmental impact statement. There is no secret statement of findings from the planning board. And I find it precipitous that you would do so, especially considering you are still in the process of discovering whether or not it's feasible to expand our own water system, which is necessary before we extend water permanently to Medline. I know that they've said that they would pay for the Baxter system to be taken online, and that they're willing to work with the town of Montgomery and get Baxter online so they can get water to their property. But long term, how long is that gonna last for Medline? Are we gonna commit to a public hearing to extend water to Medline before we even know if we have the treatment capacity for Medline in-house without the Baxter system being online? There's a lot of cards being stacked up here. And I think that the cards at the bottom, I mean, they're gonna fall over. And I'm gonna ask you to extend the town residents of Montgomery the same courtesy that you are extending the village of Walden, and allow us to complete the secret process, including public hearings, completion of the final environmental impact statement, and a statement of finding from the planning board before you proceed. The next thing I have to say about SECRA is that there have been several SECRA processes currently in action, previously in action, completed by the planning board that have failed to completely consider cumulative impacts to the town. Particularly, I would speak especially on traffic impacts, and I would speak about impacts to the Tin Brook watershed. And I have asked the planning board in my comments to them, and I have forwarded some comments to this board, specifically to you, Supervisor, asking for a general environmental impact statement to be undertaken for the Tin Brook in particular. There's dozens of projects right now on the banks of the Tin Brook. Each one of them is discharging water. They're asking the state for permits to discharge water to the Tin Brook. The town has an opportunity to take a leadership role and protect the town brook. We're not even looking at it as a cumulative process. We're not evaluating how much water is going to go into the Tin Brook. And the Tin Brook, it flows through the village of Walden directly into the Walkill River, which is an impacted river already. We're an MS4 town. We have an obligation to the state of New York to be more conscious of our stormwater impacts. We're talking about discharging huge amounts of stormwater into the Tin Brook, and also treated water from sanitary sewer and also from septic systems directly into the Tin Brook. There's a lot of additional water flowing into there. That water flows through the village of Walden. It throws through people's backyards where it floods. It throws past the village of Walden wellheads. I'm concerned about the Tin Brook for a lot of reasons. I'm concerned about its downstream impact on the Walkill River. And I mean, I've already spoken to this board at length about traffic impacts. There are two environmental impact statements that I feel are merited in this town, general environmental impact statements. Overall looks at the town capacity for traffic and impacts to the Tin Brook. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anyone towards the back? Big fellows in the back there? Yes.
This has nothing to do with town business, it's just related to a telephone call that I got during the meeting, which I had to take, because it was from a family member. Just for anyone who receives a call from what turns out to be a scam, there are calls going around by people claiming to inform the recipient of the call that their social security number has been suspended. Okay, this is something that happens, they prey on the senior population, and it just happened to a family member of mine. They got a phone call and they were frantic about it because they're an elderly member. So if anybody you know, and I'm sure many of you have heard about this, but if you know someone who may be susceptible of such calls, have a discussion beforehand. They cannot suspend your social security number. Your social security number is your social security number. Anybody, and they're not gonna call you, if there's any problem from the Social Security Administration or the IRS or the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance or motor vehicles or your credit card companies, they're not gonna call you up and look for information. So, and this Social Security thing is very frightening because that's the first step in identity theft. So if you know anybody like who's susceptible to such calls, please let them know they should just hang up. That has nothing to do with town business. I just want, you know, as long as we're all here together, everybody knows somebody who's elderly and they get these kind of calls. So please ask them to be careful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have brochures down in my office on it too.
Great. Yeah, it's happening more and more, and it's just, they steal your social security number and it's a complete nightmare.
I would like to make a motion to go into executive session over an employee issue, please.
Second. Second. Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank everyone for coming.